good to be back with you. I'll get started here in just a second. Let's a few people get in. Had some good days of weather here in Sonora. Hopefully the rest of you, it's been a good week getting back around. My husband and I have been working on a garden shed for me. We have a deer problem at our house. Our yard is pretty wide open, exposed, no fencing. So the deer just are very friendly, and they come up and use my yard as a buffet. So we built a garden shed so that I could have a garden, and very excited about that. And so we've been working on that. And the exciting thing is that we finished it this week. So that's the big news in my house, and I'm very excited about it. My granddaughter and I have gotten the plants together and teaching her to put those seeds in the ground and plant that. So that's been really a lot of fun. A lot of fun things coming up soon as far as we are concerned here on Saturday Sampler. So good morning. A lot of you are starting to pop in, and good to see all of you. Alice, Irene, hi Bonnie, Kyla, Lynn, Melanie, Debbie, and some of you I've seen. So each week that your face comes up, it's always just a very pleasant, very nice thing to do. The first thing that I want to talk about today is something that's coming up in 2 weeks. On the 23rd, the class is going to be about starting a new project. We're going to finish up with our Hexies this week and next week. And then I'm going to start a project. It's improv quilting. And it's been an interest of mine for a long time, and I've played around with it a lot, and now it's time to actually get serious and put together a small, wall hanging or throw quilt, and I want to do that along with you guys. So what's going to make this is kind of unique is that I really am going to build it with you on the show. So I want to give you an idea of what that is going to entail. This is kind of the outline that I'm using. I saw different things in stores, on the internet, all kinds of places. But we're going to make 4-inch blocks. And the question marks are in there with some of the fabrics that we have chosen for this project, and I'm going to show you those in just a minute. And so they're going to be 4-inch blocks, so nothing intimidating. It's not going to be overwhelming or crazy for sure. And so each of those squares, and right here we've put around a 6-inch border around it. But in that 6-inch border, we're going to do some fun things or not. It's totally up to you. So let me take that down for a moment, and let me bring up this picture. And this are the fabrics, and you're going to see that on the Quilt Show in the newsletter. And I think they're beautiful. And if you'll notice, on the left side is the cool color fabrics, and on the right side are the warm colors. Now what I like to do when I'm putting together a quilt for the first time is I like to choose for something that's like this, that's going to be all together, small blocks. I want to go with either warm or cool, and throw in, if I choose warm fabrics, the ones on the right, I would throw in every now and then a few of the cool color fabrics, and it gives the quilt, as far as color is concerned, just those pops that every quilt needs. And then the background, you can see it peeking out, is a gray that will fill in for the sashing and in the border. And that gray has just a beautiful color to it. And let me take you down to my table, and here are those fabrics. That gray is just yummy. And it feels so good. We've got some light, because we always need the lights. We've got mediums in both piles. This is really, these are lights again in the cool colors. So if you want to choose cool colors and throw in pieces of the warm, or if you want to choose warm and throw in pieces of the cool throughout the quilt, either way. And I think I'm going to go with warm this time and throw in pieces of this cool. I just love it. And of course, you don't have to buy the kit, but what they've put together and chosen here are just absolutely yummy, and we can do a lot with this. And so I would encourage you, if you are interested in working right alongside of with me and creating your own blocks, your own quilt with this improv, you might want to jump on this today. So with that being said, that's coming up on the 23rd. So we'll start then. So I know that Kristen will throw up a link for those fabrics and those kits, and it will come out in the newsletter as well today. So I'm going to put that away. And then I want to share with you that a couple of weeks ago we did some, I try to share tips and ideas with all of you all the time. And Melissa sent me this on my email this week. She put this together, first time with a lot of strips, she said, and with using the ruler to get those diamond shapes and all of that, putting it together, and using some of the tips that we've shared here on the show. And I think she just did a beautiful job, and I wanted all of you to be able to see it. And if you are working on projects and want to share those with all of us, you know that you can put those into the forum, which is on thequiltshow.com, and put it into D Saturday Sampler forum. The other thing you can do is go to Instagram and hashtag D Saturday Sampler and throw them up on Instagram, or you can email me directly, as Melissa did, to divinequilts@gmail.com, and those two addresses are on your screen. So with that, and good morning from Ireland. Hopefully that's one place I always have wanted to go, is Ireland. It's on my bucket list. So I saw that Kristen put up the improv kit in the chat box, as well as my forum link. So today we're going to again work on Hexies, and for excuse me, today's work we're going to look at English paper piecing. And I've got a few things here that I would like to share with you on that. First of all, things that you might need. Out of stock paper, I made the templates from, the hexagon templates, and this one I think this is the 1 inch. So, and I make a bunch of these out of, stock paper or heavy paper. Another paper that excuse me, works pretty good is sometimes cereal boxes. They're getting thinner, and they work really well because it's stock. Piece of fabric that is going to work all the way around it. I usually pick up 2.5-inch squares, something, in that vicinity, about that size for this. This looks like it's a little bit more of a rectangle. But working on, for grandmother's flower garden quilt. Also, I have been working on this quilt for a little bit, and got a bunch of blocks done for it. The center starts with a hexagon, and then I put these shapes going next and around the outside edge. And what I want, especially for this, as I'm doing the English paper piecing, I don't really want to see all my, stitching. When I first started out with English paper piecing, I would see, my stitching on the front overly much, and I didn't always like it. But as I practiced and worked at it, I certainly got better at it. And I don't know if you can see, you really pretty much can't see, I don't know if you really can't see my stitching. But on the back side, what I've done to put that together. So that's what we're going to do first of all. And I want to talk a little bit about the materials that I use. I use my pattern, my fabric. I need a glue stick, and I like these Sew Tights. I think Tula Pink. They're from her. If we have them in the store, I know that Kristen will put them up. The Karen K. Buckley scissors are usually my go-to for something like this. The other scissors that I really, really like because it holds on and it gives some strength to that is the Appliquick scissors. And these are terrific because when you get to the end, it holds your fabric. So either one of those scissors work really well for this. So let's get started. And I've got my next flower for another project already started, and I'll show you the stitching on that. First, I want to look up and make sure that there's no questions. There's a question here, will you take the papers out later or leave them in? For right now, I am leaving these in the smaller ones, but once I get, like on this one, the center one, I took that out because I don't need it anymore. And now that I've got my outside row on, I will remove these and I'll reuse these papers for my, the next block. And then once I get them all together, I tend to leave the outside until I sew, the next connecting one. As soon as I have connected and it's enclosed, I remove the paper. So hopefully that will help you out there. Yeah, Debbie, that's true. How does anybody complete an entire quilt? I taught this on one of my retreats in Michigan, and the next, 6 months later when I went back for the next retreat, or the year afterwards, she came back with a queen-size quilt completely done in 1 inch, sized grandmother's quilt, all done by hand. So there are people out there that actually do that and love it. And so let me just make sure here that I don't see yeah, people are, come into the quilt show from countries all around the world. I don't know how many countries that is. I'm not even sure that anyone at the quilt show knows, but it certainly is a big number. Let's put it that way, because I noticed even on here, South America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Eastern countries, Japan and Korea, I've seen people's on, so we get quite a few people from different parts of the world, which is absolutely wonderful. And if so, welcome to all of you. All right, the first thing I do is just to hold it in place and give me a little security when I'm first starting out. I drop a little bit of glue, not much, on my piece of paper, and it sticks for as long as I need it to. Give it a push in there, and then I will get started on sewing, around this. But first I'll bend it over, and I honestly, there are people that, cut this and size that up to a little more than 1/4 of an inch on each side. But really on the back side, it doesn't matter what it looks like to me. That's just me. So I start with that side and then I fold this one over. I usually give it a little finger press just to hold it in place. And then I will avoid going through the paper. There are those who will tell you that you need to sew through the paper. That is not me, and so I don't do that. I go in and take just a little stitch there at the beginning, and then I'll stitch and come up in the center of that that side, and then I'm gonna put this one over to the next corner. I take a stitch from there. I'm not going through the paper, and I give it a firm tug, and I keep going around this the same way. It doesn't take very long when I'm trying to do it carefully on screen so that you can see it, and hopefully I am. And once I get to that side, I flip the other one over, because really all I'm trying to do at this point is keep this fabric on my template, so that it's firm, and it's not pretty on the back the way I do this. So I take that second stitch in simply because it just holds it a little bit better, and it's just as quick as not doing it. And I keep my stitches fairly close to the top, simply so that when I take my papers out, so now I'm back to my original spot, and I just took another stitch to hold it in place. I pull it taut, put a knot in it, and I have my hexagon secured in there. Now I like to drop my iron on it to set it in place so that when I take the papers out, it has that memory of the of the fold right there, so that when the papers come out. Now I've got the next one on here, and I've started to sew it in place, and so I've sewed the first portion of that, and now I want to sew these two together before I put the next one on here. And when I was doing this, I didn't exactly do it the way I wanted to, because now I have to fold the paper, and I really didn't want to do that. So I'm gonna go over here, and if you can see what's happening, I can sew from this edge up here all in one fell swoop, which over here I started at the in the center, and now I'm ready to put this side on. Okay, and I'm gonna start here. So to start with, I would begin with the corners. I want those lined up, and here's where these sew tights come in really nicely. So I can put, and then I don't have to squeeze so hard with my fingers, because I'm starting to have that trouble with my fingers. So I'm going to put the magnet on one side and this magnet on this side out of the way, and these magnets hold very well, so I don't have to squeeze with my fingers and cause them to go numb. And so I'm going to start right here in the corner, and I want to, I'm going to do pretty much a whip stitch, more or less. But when I use my needle, and I get started, I am going to go straight across, and I want that my needle to be horizontal straight across that piece, because I'm going to get that stitch on the inside where it's not going to show. And when I put my my next stitch in across that paper, it goes in and it doesn't hit the paper, because I have pushed this with the magnet or my fingers in such a way that the needle is simply going into the very edge of my template, and I can take my next stitch. So it's a whip stitch, but I really work at keeping my my needle right horizontal across there. And I'm making this look harder than it is today. It happens when I'm on screen, but I'll get going here. It's also, if you use the sew tights, it's where do you put the sew tights so they're not in your way, and they're feeling awkward in my hand, so I need to move them down just a little bit. But I'm really taking my needle in and going straight across so that my pin continues to stay very horizontal. It's not bent in any way. I'm doing about not quite a 1/16 of an inch as I move along there. And if you hit the paper, I move my needle. There, I had hit it. So going straight across. And honestly, I can do a whole stack of these in an evening watching, some movie on television or whatever. When I'm working on this, keeps my hands busy. Or if I just need a break from other things that I'm doing, sitting on the couch with my granddaughter while she's falling asleep, I can get about 5 or 6 done, and then she's asleep. So, there's times when I'm not doing something else. So now I'm at the end, and I want to make sure that I hit that point right there. And I want to hit the point on the other side. I'm going to take a second stitch there just to secure that in. Remove this, open that up, and just to share, to show you that there's no gap as those two corners come together. And really, you cannot, I don't know if I can get it up high enough or close enough, but you really don't see those stitches on the top. And that's my preference. And I have found out that if I keep those stitches going, with my needle horizontal across that, when it's like this, and that needle stays horizontal right above that paper, I don't have a problem with my stitches showing on the top of my fabric. And that's, my preference and what I like. And, removing this paper is pretty simple. You simply go in, and because you've pressed it with the iron, it has I don't really necessarily want to take it out, but I just pull it back, and that just slips out. I'll push it back, set the iron on it, re-straighten it as I go. And once I get all 6 of these around my hexagon, I will remove that center one. Then when I put my next one on, and these are all completely enfolded within, then I'll remove these. And that's when I remove the papers from that. So let's see if there's any question. And some of you are already working on that. The thread blasting is great use for old thread. Yeah, and I meant to say that when I am doing this outside, I will take, you know, putting the fabric onto a template, I will use up old, you know, almost gone pieces of thread because I don't care what that thread is. But when I am doing this, I like to use silk thread. The other thread that I really love is these spools that come from Quilter Select. I've also got Superior's Super Bobs because now I have all of these incredible colors of threads. These have a sheen to it from Quilter Select, and they're, I think they're the I can't remember the weight of them, but they're the real fine. They're very fine, very strong thread because I think it's cotton with the nylon, or the nylon centers with cotton around the outside. I can't remember exactly, but I know that you can go on the website and find out. But you get these beautiful colors that I can use when I do this. So if the thread shows, you really aren't going to see it. These don't have the sheen to it, and you can see I've had this a long time. This is what I use for all of my handwork, and this is the this is Superior's, this is Quilter Select, and you just get all these wonderfully luscious colors of the thread. And I started using them because the silk thread, you know, was kind of expensive. And I love the silk because it just disappears. And I tend to go with this kind of a champagne colored silk thread, and it pretty much hides itself in any fabric that I'm using. And Melanie mentions here, I'm there, where she uses for her templates, Papers is children's books. Secondhand stores have them cheap and the paper's usually thick, which is true. And I never thought of doing that. Yes, there was a magnet on my watch. Thank you. It picked up. All right. So some of you are working on grandmother's flower garden piece, but it doesn't, as you know, it doesn't have to be a grandmother's flower garden piece. Like, for example, when I was showing you this, there are many paper piecing patterns out there. This one just happened to start with the hexagon in the center, and I pulled it out, and it's one I'm working on and looking forward to finishing it. Now, I also want to talk about other things that you can do with these small. This is how I'm doing mine as a pillow. And so I made a bunch of these little hexagons this week. I was given this fold-out bag from a friend, and she had made this, and it's wonderful. I love it. And the quilting on it to me was absolutely terrific, and I just think this is so pretty. So leaving 1/8 of an inch in between each one of these, I tried something different with my pillow. I hand stitched my rows vertically together and put them on here, and left my 1 inch opening in between because I wanted to see if I could make it look a little different and stuff, and it worked okay. I think I would go back to this because it just, you know, this is spectacular to me. So this is a 12.5 inch pillow. I like to throw different things for different seasons on the bed or on the couch. So this is the top of a 12 inch pillow. So I put, 4, 3, 4, 3 and put them together and then stitch them. And so I've got on my stitching these little triangles that for my quilting, and I wanted to share this with you, how you can put them down. So these are not sewn by hand down onto my fabric. They were simply I dropped a little piece of the acorn glue on the back to hold them in place, and then I stitched them down, going through the points of, and you can really see it here where it's going straight through the points. I think this one's a little clearer than that because I used an off-white thread here, and she's got the white, so I think it's a little bit easier to see. So simply going through each of the point areas and quilting that down. So the quilting goes really quickly. It's a clever layout, and it just makes for something really pretty. So she made the background fabric out of the hexagons as she created this, these bags that have all these pockets, in them, that I, take on to my classes when I'm teaching, to retreats, that kind of thing. And I absolutely love and adore this bag. So that was another possibility for you of how you might put together and a spring quilt. You could so easily do this as a table runner. You could easily do it as a table topper. Create a background that you love and put these on the top and quilt it down. So let me check and see if there's any questions. What do you like about using acorn glue for your hexagon project? I use acorn glue for a lot of things. When I want to hold it, or there is a difficult coming, where you're going to be sewing it, I will drop that acorn glue, and I'm going to see if I have it here close by. I think it's over on my ironing board. But that glue will hold it together, and it holds it a little bit better than, the stick glue. I find that this one will get a little, if I get a little dry or whatever, but it holds the fabric together, together enough for me to sew it. And so the acorn glue, when I'm putting it on here, is going to hold it for a little bit longer, and I can be a little bit rougher with it than I can with a glue stick. And so that's what I kind of like about the acorn glue for holding these in place, because it just holds it a little bit better. It's temporary. It's not a glue that's going to stay in there because it washes right out, but it just holds it a little bit stronger for me. And I don't know if I explained that very well. Yeah, if you've got a Cricut machine or something, one of those types of machines, cutting out your templates is great. Yeah, and the Quilter Select thread sets, they have really colors for every situation. They're, in those color wheels. If you don't have that, you're missing out, because I think for any kind of hand quilting, those circles are just absolutely phenomenal, because there are so many. There are just so many colors that's available to you, and you can get them, different colorways on those, and the Superior Super Bobs as well. But this one is, the thread is so fine, and it is so strong. I cannot really hardly break it with my hands. It's very difficult to do, and in fact, as I get older and my hands are working less for me, so from all these dark colors to the brighter colors, they're just fabulous. And I want to say again that next week we are going to be starting on we're going to finish up, not start, we're going to finish up with the hexagons, and I have, some hexagon shape blocks that we'll finish up with, in kind of a fun way, another way to look at your work in terms of a hexagon. And then on the 23rd, we're going to start with our next project, and I want to show you these fabrics again. They are in the store. They're ready to go. This kit is wonderful. And even if you don't use all of the fabrics in this, it makes for a wonderful, stash builder as well, and for other projects that we'll be doing in the future. So if you're interested in working on that improv quilt with me, or just watching and learning, you can use your own fabrics, or this kit is pretty wonderful as well. So that starts on the 23rd of March with that. All right. Let me see if there's any other questions before I go. The size of papers I'm using, that was the 1 inch. And if you bought the templates from the quilt show, I think the smallest one was a 1 inch. That was in that hexagon template, the plastic templates. The acorn glue is on your ironing board. Does this mean you routinely iron it to heat set it or dry it more quickly? It's to dry it more quickly. And I have it over there because I'm working on a clamshell quilt where I want them to stay in place until I can get to the hand quilting around it. So if I drop that acorn glue very quickly on that and then press it with an iron, I can move on just a little bit quicker, and the acorn glue stays put. And so if I have a difficult quilt, even like a pinwheel where they all come together in the center, and I really want that center to stay put, then I will drop that acorn glue together in that center, so that I don't have any chance, because sometimes even with the pin, as careful as I put it in, it may or may not move when I get to that point and pull the pin out. And even just a little bit of a pull in the center of a block like that, and I know that there's a number of people who use that glue or a glue stick, and they glue their seams before they sew instead of using pins. So each one of us gets into habits that are ours, and that's what this show is about, me sharing with you how I approach things, and you can take a look at it. If things work for you, I hope you keep them and hang on to it. But every now and then it's good to try something new, because you may find it might be a little bit easier and better to do that with. And so on this one, the glue stick is fine for that paper, and it's quick and it's easy. I like the Quilter Select pen. It's yellow. I can see it, and I know that I've got the glue there. And it dries quickly, it washes out, and it's temporary, and it works fine for that. All right, so I think I've got the questions. So I'll see you next week, and we'll finish up with our hexagon projects with a few blocks that give you the illusion of a hexagon, but aren't necessarily a true hexagon in that. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Have a great week, and blessings to all of you.